Welcome, everyone, to the last episode of season two of the PCP podcast. This one's going to be a little bit more serious as well, just like the Nice one. This one's going to be called Times of Darkness. And I felt like it was appropriate just because, with everything positive and everything that I like to talk about motivation and all that stuff, all of that comes also with darkness, times of sadness, times of depression, times of us being down in on the floor, building our foundations. And yeah, it's what makes us who we are. And yeah, we'll be talking about that in this episode. So like I said, just a quick little big thanks to everyone that's worked on season two. Big shout out to the Jays for episode one, Anthony and Mike. Big shout out to Travis for episode two. Big shout out to Andres for episode three. Another big shout out to Paula for episode four. To Jimmy for being part of part two. Renee, Shane. Um, who am I missing? Renee, Shane, Fonzo, Hector. Big shout out to him for coming on that pod and doing that one. And I'm just making sure I don't miss any names. Give me 1 second. Um, yeah, Hector, Fonzo, my friend Christian, he's gonna get married soon, so big congratulations to him. My nieces, Angelise and Jocelyn, for helping me out with that one. The Bro Talk, which ended up being really good. And that one was Fonzo, Shane, and Herbert, Funny Man Gerbert. I don't think I'm missing anyone. And if I am, I think I said Travis already. Thank you again, guys, for supporting my hobby. Um, and we're here for the last episode, man. This is something that's amazing. It's finally here for season two. Season three is going to start right away. And that one, you'll get more of an intro video on that one, on how that one's specifically going to work. But yeah, Times of Darkness. Let's see. Definitely want to tell you that in life, a lot of us do not decide what kind of hand we're dealt in life, and good or bad, a lot of us learn to deal with it. Can't talk. A lot of us learn to store that stuff away in our closet and not let it resurface until later on in our lives, where we need to reach out for help because we've kept these skeletons in our closet for a long time. So I'll be giving everyone obviously my examples and how I've um, persevered, and also what I'm going through now today. I'll give you a little insight on that, not too much, but definitely give you some battles that I'm going in my personal life right now. But yeah, we're going to be very serious, very truthful on this podcast. um, Darkness, for a lot of people are still in it. Some people don't ever escape it, or some people learn to just find ways of dealing with it, and that's why they cope with alcohol, they cope with drugs, they cope with marijuana. There's many ways that people cope with a lot of things to just feel a relief of, to not feel pain for that hour, for that night. A lot of people like to hang out with friends a lot and disguise it there. You always see those memes, like the one laughable or comedic friend that is always making the jokes is usually the one that's suffering the most. So that seems to be true in a lot of scenarios. If you really look deep down into the situation, there is something that's bothering that other person. That's why he always wants to be in a group setting, et cetera, et cetera. The darkness that we'll specifically be talking about, or not just the times of bumps on the road that I'm going to be mentioning right here, is death, breakups, stress, and mental health situations. Um, yeah, so one thing we'll definitely talk about in a generic way right now is, what do I do to help myself deal with stress? So that's one of the questions that I was asked about. Someone was asked on Instagram, how do you deal with stress? So, like, what's a good stress reliever? I'm going to give a couple of things that I found that I use personally, and what I feel like also I see a lot of people doing, you know. So I personally like to, especially to, it, when I know that I'm very overwhelmed at work or with any life situation, I tend to know that the gym does help. Now, getting to the gym isn't always easy, but I promise you that when you do get to go to the gym, um, I like to work out and to the point where I'm exhausted because I'll be, like I said, we're being honest. Because then I go home, and usually when the dark thoughts happen or the reason of why I'm stressed out a lot, I don't get to think about it too much because when I'm home, I usually just get home around like 7 or 8 after the gym because I work a 9 to 5 basically, and the gym helps me get tired. So I'm usually going home, eating dinner, and if I'm lucky, I'll eat dinner and then pass out, or I'll just pass out. That's when I know I had a really great gym session because I beat the shit out of my body. Um, One thing in my early 20s that I felt helped me a lot to get over dark and bumpy roads was self improvement books, reading successful stories, reading true shit about people that are willing to share their story. And it helps you understand how you can overcome these situations because you read about it and it gives you hope. And it makes you realize that you're not the only one in this boat and you're going to have some type of hope that at least sparks something in you that makes you want to do better for yourself. And what positive message doesn't help anybody? You know, it's going to have to do something in your brain. And you have to learn how to manipulate your brain, how to trigger your brain to really respond to these positive things because it all really is at the end of the day all in the mind. If you can get your mind strong, you can get it disciplined. I promise you that you will, whatever you're going through, it's going to help. And self improvement books have helped me a lot. Um, or just reading it on you know, seeing things on YouTube like David Goggins, Joe Rogan for me. Um, um, what's it called? I like listening to a lot of people that have been in the dirt and been in hell, like David Goggins says, and been back. So yeah. Friends, obviously, for me is a big factor. My brothers are someone that I share everything almost with, and they always have my back no matter what, even if it's joking around, talking, getting my mind distracted for a little bit. So that helps. And I've noticed as I gotten older, you don't need drinking or to smoke or anything like that when you have true brothers because or sisters, because at the end of the day, you know, if they know that something's bothering you and something upset, they're going to try their best to help you out with it. And it doesn't have to involve alcohol. I mean, it can, but I'm saying it doesn't have to. Um, yeah. And just being able to mentally accept that there is something bothering you and having the courage to step up and be like, okay, I need help. I need professional help, or I just need to vent. Being able to socialize, even if it is to a stranger, because sometimes we like to keep everything stored and we think that's helping us, but it's not. It raises our anxiety, our stress levels to over the roof, and that can do a lot of damage psychologically and just not good for a person because um, as we go further and further in my situations, I'll explain to you on how those scenarios do not help. I've been like, I think everyone's kind of like that when they're younger, keeping it to themselves because they don't want to feel or seem weak in the group. But that's just not the case. Just continuing to grow your mind and being able to revisit these bad thoughts at a later time is something I can encourage you all to do. Maybe at that current time, if something's going on with you, it's hard you don't want to feel that feeling at that very moment, but I promise you that you can store it for a little bit, but revisit those thoughts. Make sure you're healing because the only way you heal is by revisiting those bad thoughts and those bad ideas and those bad moments in your life because um you have to encounter it at some point. You know, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, all right, like what am I going to do to get better? How do I stop these thoughts, this anxiety, this stress? If I'm doing A, B, and C, like the gym, self improvement books, um, just being able to talk to yourself in quiet moments. You know, a lot of people don't like that, but It's definitely something that I find key to revisit your thoughts in those times. It sucks. You'll cry, you'll get angry, you get very emotional, but I think it's very important when dealing with tough times. Um, Treating yourself and giving yourself a break, knowing when to step away or change your bad habits. Yeah, like I said before, if you're someone that drinks a lot or likes to smoke a lot, tend to get away from those habits. Try to see how you are without those variables in your life, and see if you can go a moment without it, and try to really sink in those bad moments, especially if time has passed. People like to say time heals everything, but it doesn't. That is an expression that as I grown up, I tend to hate when people say that to me. Time doesn't heal shit. What time does is just suppress things and makes it seem like it was never there in the first place, but it was. So action within that time definitely does something. So learning to treat yourself right, take care of yourself. If it is doing it physically, mentally, going on hikes, seeing nice, beautiful sights, because eventually, like I said, you want to get out of the bedroom, you want to explore beautiful areas, and you also want to be even if doing it alone, like I said, you want to love yourself, and sometimes that's very hard after going through a traumatic experience. First thing we're gonna Oh, the second question, um, they asked me on Instagram is, do you have any tips on developing or maintaining a routine? Um, like I said, it's all in the mind. I'm someone that has struggled with discipline. I get good at it for a little bit, and then I tend to come off it, and then I suck because it all goes spiraling down. So, learning to really train your mind to know that whatever you're doing is a must and not like just something that you can blow off. Like if it's working out, make sure you train your mind to say, if I need to work out 5 or 4 times out of the week, it has to happen no matter what. Like wherever I'm making it work, it has to happen. And just training your mind. It sounds a lot easier said than done, but it's not. It's something that's very hard. Something that's helped me, take accountability of my actions is writing things down. I used to have things in my bedroom that would say like my 5-year goal or my 12 months goal, and I would make sure that I reminded myself every morning when I woke up. I was like, okay, these are the things I have to aim for. So, what am I going to do today to make sure that I'm one step closer to achieving that goal? So that's what I would be doing, and it helped a lot for a good moment of my life. Um, Learn to talk to yourself. A lot of people find it weird, but I have a lot of solo moments with myself in my car, especially my car in the morning when I'm going to work. But in tough times, good times, make sure you're always taking gratification for the good moments, not just the bad ones. Just when it's bad, you doesn't mean you have to talk to yourself. Talk to yourself always. Um, it kind of saying things out loud or saying things in your mind help clarify things, and also lets you know when you should be very grateful and when you need to work on things, because sometimes we like to victimize ourselves or blame point the finger at others, but it's really us. It's really us doing a lot of the damage to ourselves, or we think that people are doing it to us, and it's really just us inflicting self-inflicting damage. So learn to talk to yourself a lot. That's ways on I would Those are tips that I think you should develop in maintaining a routine. And like I said, if you talk to yourself a lot, that's when you're holding yourself accountable. And yeah, so those are my tips on doing that. Let's talk about death and the honesty that no one likes to talk about this topic. And I feel like no one's ever comfortable with the idea of it. Some people say they are, and if they are, you can see the ones that bullshit and the ones that don't. To be honest with you, I'm comfortable with the idea that I know that we are not here forever. Like that is not a surprise to me. I've seen enough people pass away in my lifetime that I understand that time is not promised to us. We all have a final chapter, regardless if we get to live to 80 or not. God is, well, at least I believe in God, but in my belief, I believe that He has done this to us in this physical journey for a reason. It's to do the best of your ability, what you can do in this world to impact it the way you were supposed to. And I'm learning to understand that I have to make sure I get better at that. You know, like I said, I am very good for a very good moment, and then I slip up and I tend to forget why I was doing what path I was on for some reason. It's a bad habit of mine that I'm trying to break. Even with this podcast, like I mentioned it in the intro video, I like to start a lot of things and I never finish it. And this is something that I'm very happy that I'm getting to finish. It took me a little bit, but I did a lot better than season one. So season two is definitely a check mark. I know I still have a lot of things to work on. Like I said, I'm holding my accountability on that, but I'm working on making sure that that improves. But just to share with you guys, the first death that really hit me hard in my life was, I mentioned it in one of my PCP memos on the TikTok channel, so make sure you guys follow me there too, is losing my grandfather. I lost my grandfather in 2008. Um, I was young. I believe this is when I was 13, 14, one of those years. And I didn't really understand what it meant to our family. I mentioned it before, like I said in the memo. He was like the glue of the family. He was someone that was very important into the bond of my mom's side of the family. He was someone that had encouraged my family to always stick together no matter the tough times. And he was the reason a lot of my, uncles and aunts did not fight. But sadly, when he passed away, it was you got to see a lot of real faces of what our family tended to do. A lot of people pointed fingers for some reason. It's not like my grandpa was murdered or anything like that. My grandpa died sadly of cancer, and it was a tragic death. But a lot of us did it. I feel like today I can proudly say, not proudly, but today I can like honestly say I think that a lot of them didn't know how to cope with the death, and that's why fingers were pointed. Like I said, it was a big loss for a lot of people, including me, my mom. My mom went to a deep depression. You could tell she was her that was her she was Addie's little girl. And my mom, it was sad to see my mom go through really dark times, and I didn't know what to do. As a 14-year-old, I was kind of also not understanding the I didn't know how to feel. Like I was sad, depressed. I was definitely upset, but I didn't feel like I had the right to ask questions because my mom was going through such a tough time, and I didn't know how to approach it. So I felt like I needed to be tough because that's what my cousins were telling me at the time. My cousins were also around my age. So this is something that it definitely hurt and left a scar in me until I finally faced it years later on, like later on in my life, and learned to understand that it's a natural way, it's a natural thing in life to die. Definitely didn't like the fact that my grandpa died out of cancer. I wish he would have just died more in peace, but I am grateful and I'm looking at the positive things that happened within that death. Is that I have to look at it as my grandpa lived until he was 87 years old. He got to see his kids grow up, his kids have kids. My nieces, that was their great grandfather. So he was able to see them. And thanks to him, he created a big section of my family, man. Like it's so crazy to believe nowadays like this man's responsible for so many lives being here today. And I have to look at the positive things to it. That's why some people say you have to celebrate death sometimes, because you have to also look at the things that this man or person brought to the world, and he brought a lot of beauty into it. And just because a lot of people, and it's normal for people to act chaotic in these times and depressed and not understand what's going on, because they to them they lost their world. My grand I'm not saying that I didn't, I definitely did, but I like I said, I was young. I didn't really understand the magnitude of it, and later on it did affect me psychologically, but I've gotten better from that. I've learned to understand where my feelings of hatred and resentment actually came from, with ironically my God. I did not, when my grandpa passed away, I was actually very angry and was pissed off that my mom was making me go to church, because I'm like, why would this being put us in this world and then take these people away? in fucked up ways, and I looked at it like that. I looked at it as very revengeful, and for a long time, from the time I was 14 probably until I was let me see, until like 22, 21, 22 years old. I didn't really, I had a fake faith with God, and I stopped going to church, and I won't lie to you, I don't go to church now, but my bond with him is definitely has gotten stronger, has definitely healed on my side, because like I said, I was very angry at the time. I didn't understand what was going on. So I had a lot of questions. Um, one of my questions were, like I said before, like, why create a world like this? And it's really more to of a question that I figured out that it doesn't need an answer to. I don't think we'll ever get that answer, at least not in this world. I believe that we are given this physical world, and a lot of us don't take advantage of it. And I'm learning to at the age of 30. Well, I'm about to be 30. But at this age, I'm learning to understand that there is going to be dark times. Uh, Cards, you're going to be dealt cards that you're not going to understand why me? Like, why do I get the situation? But it's not really, you really shouldn't look at it like that. You should look at it more like, okay, I was dealt this card. How am I going to go and attack it from here? How am I going to take this and approach the next couple of steps? Because the next couple of steps are going to be very important for everyone, especially if you're dealt a bad hand. So you have to be careful. And sometimes we seem to put ourselves in a deeper hole, and that's when things of depression and the magnitude hit us, because we feel like we're stuck. We feel like every choice that we make at that point is just leading us deeper and deeper into the hole, which is not the case. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it is for us, but sometimes we have to go deeper to understand why, and we have to see where we bounce back from there. So yeah, death, like I said, as I saw more and more people pass away when I got older, um, in a weird way, like I said, my bond had severed from God, but I was more and more grateful every day that my parents were still alive, that I still had time with them, that I was still alive, that the people close to me weren't suffering as much. The ones that were passing away, like aunts and uncles, it hit me at, and and my grandparents, you know, they're all in heaven now. And it came to a full circle that when my dad's parents died, I wasn't too close with them, but I saw my father cry for the first time, and it hurt me. It made me realize that even my hero can be penetrated with his hard demeanor, with his thick wall of resilience and bravery. So it made me realize that death is supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to be easy, but it comes for, like I said, it comes for us all. And the way I outlook that one, my hero, my dad, told me that he was just happy that they were able to live that long. And I said to myself, my bad, guys. I said to myself that I'm very happy, Dad, that they got to see what you did. At that time, they left my dad with him being a homeowner. My dad grew up in an Incan village in Peru, where his first language was in Spanish or English. His first language was Quechua, and Quechua is an Incan native language. So I'm very proud of my father and my mom. My dad came from learning the Incan Quechua to learning Spanish to learning English and to taking risks to come to this country, and he risked it all, and it ended up working out. at least I can proudly say that I'm happy to be where I am today for my dad's risks. And the reason I teared up a little bit there is because my dad's my hero, and to see him cry was just like it broke my heart. Like I said, I wasn't too close to my grandparents, but when he told me that, it, he's just happy that they got to. It was kind of like a really romantic death for both of them. Quick little summary. Just don't want to focus too much on that aspect, but I'll give you a little summary on how they died. My grandpa got really sick, and really sick to the point where he was in his homeland in Peru. So they knew that when he got really sick, they had to take him to the capital of Peru, which is Lima, to get taken care of and making sure that he had the best care there. So they did, and my grandma didn't want to go, so she stayed. She wasn't sick, by the way. It was just my grandpa. And my grandpa was basically being diagnosed, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with cancer as well. And he had the doctors basically said it wasn't good. Like my grandpa wasn't supposed to. He couldn't have surgery because of his age, and the news wasn't good. It was basically just a waiting game. And I'm not even lying to you. A week after he was given that bad news, we just got notice right before. I'll never forget. This is right before Sandy hit. I'm pretty sure it was before Sandy hit. It might have been after. The dates are a little bit weird. No, so I think my out of nowhere we just got news that my grandma had passed away. And when my grandma passed away, no one understood why. That they didn't actually have a medical reason as to how she passed away. They had a theory that someone may had robbed her house and she was all alone, so they feel like she just got scared and she had a heart attack and passed away. And they were keeping that news from my grandpa, but not even like 2.5 weeks later, I think they finally told him. And then a week after that news, he died. So um like you can see how it's like kind of romantic because he what I was told, I don't know how true this is. What I was told is that he said in Quechua that, oh, like my if my wife is not here, then there's not really much for me to do. And not even after that, he passed away. So like I said, it comes in full circle. um you one day you're born, you live your life, and then there's there is a chapter where that chapter, your book ends. And I take their stories, that story, as, like I said, I wasn't close to them, especially because I couldn't speak the language and I didn't get to see them that often, but they gave me my father, and my father is everything to me. My father and mother have done everything for me. So my father is my hero in the way that he was able to take risks. My mother emotionally is my hero too, because she does everything for everyone and she doesn't care how much it hurts her. So like I have valuable lessons there from my parents to take today. Um but yeah, um like I said, those are impactful deaths. And then the last one would be my last my grandma from my mom's side, which ironically to today, she was the first one out of my grandparents that get sick, get diagnosed to have health issues. And we really thought that we were going to lose my grandma every year, and she's the one that outlived all of them. And she died in 2019, I believe. Yeah. Her name, we called her Shinda. And um, I related to her the most because there's so many memories with her when I was a kid, and she was tough like my mom. She was tough like my mom, and she admitted to me, I'll never forget, one day when we were talking when I was young. I was like probably 12, 13 years old, right before my grandpa had died. But she had admitted to me that her greatest fear was to die, and she never wanted to die because when she got diagnosed that she was sick, when she had health issues, she just, I don't know why she told me that. She's like, David, like, I'm just afraid to die. And thankfully, my mom traveled this time before anything bad happened, so she was able to be with my grandma on her side. And the one thing that I can say that maybe changed a lot differently than my grandpa never died alone. He died with his kids besides my mom because we were traveling that day. He ironically had passed away when we were sitting on the um waiting to board the plane to go to Peru. But my mom was already there. And believe, you can believe me or you don't have to believe me, but I remember that night. I had a hard time sleeping that night. She passed away in the morning, and I found it very difficult to fall asleep that night. Like for some reason I had a feeling, I'm like, something's not right. And I'll never forget, I ended up going to sleep at like 4 in the morning and I had work like 7 or 8. So I barely got a good night's rest. And on my way to work, I got a text saying that my grandma had passed away. And I don't know why this person texted me like this, but I think it was my sister, and she told me, oh, she died with all her kids by her bedside. So what made me feel a lot better was that that lady didn't pass away alone. She didn't pass away not having someone by her bedside, and I think that that was her greatest fear. Her truest greatest fear is not having her kids by her side, but they were, because a lot of her kids had grown up. Obviously, my mom, older, living in the United States, she didn't think that a lot of her kids would be by her bedside, and thankfully, that was not true. You know, that's what gave me peace and acceptance that I'm happy that she died with everyone by her bedside. And like I said, even at this moment, my in 2019, my faith and my belief was already back by this time. And I'll explain that story in more detail, but my faith with God was very strong at that point again. And there was more of a calmness to me in accepting that my grandma had passed away, but in a good way. She was very old. She got to live very old, got to see so much in this world, got to give us so much. She had her home. This time it wasn't chaotic with the family. A lot of my family was there close, supportive. We had grown as a family, and this death, unlike my grandfather's, was more of a bond, a glue to repair everything that happened in the past. So I was very grateful for that one. Um, but yeah, like I said, death comes us. I know it sounds very aggressive, but we shouldn't fear death. What we should fear is not living our lives the best to our ability. I know that's cliche, and you hear that a lot, and it sounds corny. But don't don't be uh, vengeful person, a person with anger, a person that likes to upset the world. There's no reason for that. When you really look at our span in our lives, we don't get to live that long. Live the life with your best to your ability. Be the person that you want when you pass away to be spoken of highly. Someone that did something in this world, even if it's just for your family, that is a stepping stone to creating better generations of you. And I think my grandparents did that, you know. And the people that I've lost, we've always spoken of them highly. My uncles, rest in peace. My grandparents, rest in peace. The ones that I've been fortunate to know. And it impacts us differently. But we have to understand that looking at the outlook, the positive outlooks of what they did in our lives is always the best memories to have of them. Not looking at the last day. Obviously, the last day is always going to hurt, no matter how you think about it. But looking at what they have achieved, looking at what they've done, look at the relationship you've had with that person. That is always the best way to remember those. And always make sure you pay your respects to those people, no matter if it's praying, just talking out loud, going to your peaceful place that you like, the beach, the bridge, somewhere where you like to, you know, give thanks to. It doesn't have to be religious at all. But yeah, we're going to move on from there to breakups. Um, yeah, well, you guys seen me cry a couple of times now. I knew this one was going to be tough. I know I'm sorry for being a bitch, but you guys are getting the front row seat to my brain and how my brain works with these topics. But I think the more realness to it, the better it is of being able to be truthful with you guys and letting you know how I've coped with these things as I've grown. So the next is breakups. Um, I'll never forget my first heartbreak. And I feel like the first one's always the most memorable one because it's your first. You know what I mean? Like, just like you remember your first car, your first dance, your first kiss. It's not really that it's like, well, for some of us, it haunts us, right? Like in a weird way. Like we make it look like, oh, oh, that's my first true love. Nah, it's not really, to me it's not like that. To my example, it's just because it's the first one, the first one that made you evolve in that romantic side, in that emotional, vulnerable side that you were able to expose out to another person. You will you learn to be vulnerable, and this is what man, at least it's from a man aspect that I can relate to. You don't know that you had this side until you get your first heartbreak. um, I don't have hatred for this person today. It just seems like it's memorable, like for everything that I just said, and it leaves a scar. And I believe that, I look at it like this: every time you get your heart broken, it's like a physical incident that you get into. Think about it when you were a kid. We all have this example, like you all fallen out of your scooter, your bike somehow, and today you look at the scar that you had years ago, and it's definitely healed up. It looks a lot better, but it's still there. And only you, when you see it, for some reason, when you see that scar, you can remember that incident that you had. Like, and it's just like the same thing as a heartbreak. When you get close to a weird fight that resembles the past relationship, it opens up a memory box in your head of the prior relationship you were in, and it gives you bad thoughts and things like that. But just like a physical incident, when you have a breakup, um like let's say you got stitches in your scar because you fell when you were a kid. You get stitches, right? And you make sure after time those stitches have to heal, then that stitch ends up falling out by itself. And after time, you're making sure you put ointment on it so it doesn't leave that much of a scar. The same thing, like a heartbreak, making sure that you take care of yourself in those dark moments. In the breakups, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You're making sure that you attend to what you need to do in your moments of sadness and sorrow. Make sure that let those moments happen naturally. Don't hide away or shy away from those moments. Um, it's hard to move on from a breakup. It's never easy, um, due to the fact that all those memories you've shared with the person, all those moments, all those pictures that you have in your gallery, all those endearing conversations you've had, those private door conversations you've had, those vulnerable moments that you've displayed to that person, you like to think about a lot. And it's natural to reminisce in those memories, because if you really did love that person, These are memories that enter your head in the moments of darkness of the breakup. But I truly believe you have to accept that moment, just like death. Remember the good times, but know that that chapter might have closed. Now, not all breakups are the same. Every partner you have, I cannot compare it to my relationship. But at that very moment, what I like to do, I know that I have to close the door on that person for that moment. I do believe in second chances. I do believe that things can rekindle, but when those moments happen, everyone, every bad thought is going into your head. Every sad thought is going through your head, and you need time to heal. You need time to accept what's going on. You need time to reflect on your thoughts, let your tears drop because they're going to drop. If you really love that person, you're going to cry a lot. You're going to not be okay for a while. But this is very important. And just like I said, like a physical incident that you've been through, you have to emotionally heal yourself. And, shout out to Anthony Jacob in the first episode of the Puka Circle podcast of season 2. He mentioned the best thing you can do for everybody, including yourself, is work on yourself, improve yourself, make yourself a better person, make yourself stronger physically, mentally, emotionally. And I agree with him. It's one of if anything, he's taught me that doing something that improves you will never harm any individual. Um, in these moments of darkness, that's why a lot of memes you see people guys going to the gym and getting really strong and trying to flush away these feelings, but you shouldn't flush them away. Like I said, maybe like sink them in for a little bit if you need to, if you need time not to think about it, but remember that you have to go back and revisit these thoughts. In a weird way, in death and breakups and in moments of darkness, I truly believe that you have to revisit your thoughts in hell, like in what we call, I'm going to put it as a hell, but in these dark moments, like I see people like David Goggins, he describes it all the time. He punishes himself when he's feeling like he needs to quit, but I think he puts himself purposely in these dark moments because that is what made him build his character, and he needs to remember that that place still exists so he could persevere in whatever he's doing. So in these breakup moments, like I said, even when you physically and mentally get stronger, make sure you revisit these thoughts because healing is something that you have to accept what happened. And if you're not accepting that that breakup messed you up a little bit, then, I feel like that's going to leave an emotional scar, and that scar can reopen in your future relationships or just in the future, or could prevent you from having a relationship. You see a lot of people nowadays um, not want to let a person into their heart because they've been hurt, damaged, and they don't trust anybody. And I also believe that's not good. And like I said, do as you wish with this information. You can go and talk to a professional about it or vent to a person or no, like, but you have to be mentally aware that that's not okay. That is not healthy to think like that. At least, like I said, these are my opinions and thoughts. So if you have others, that's completely fine. Um, we all have journeys of how we find the true love, but my theory is there is no perfect person for you. Love can be worked on, and when you do find the person that you feel like you need to spend the rest of your life with, you'll know. You'll know to work on it. You'll know that you have to make sacrifices. Um, you'll have to see where you are with them emotionally, spiritually, and the tough conversations that are going to be had and things like that. And, in my life right now, even when I use all my examples that I've used, I still have dark moments. I still have bad cards that I'm being dealt currently at the moment right now with life. And I'm going to say this because life punches you from weird directions even when your life is going as planned. And we sometimes don't know how to react to it. We don't know how to deal with these emotions or these situations that, you know, arise from these punches that life just throws at us. But I truly believe that a couple of years ago, I was given a really bad punch um, within my family. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but there was something that happened that made me feel like I couldn't escape these dark times, and I needed a way out. I needed a new start. And, luckily my brother gave me that moment by, allowing me to shelter over here with him. And now that I grew up wiser and better, and I've learned to deal with my thoughts and from that scenario, I understand that I got to improve. I have to revisit those dark times, and I've gotten to revisit those dark times, and it sucked, but it was worth having these conversations with myself. And now I'm going to be put in a situation where I didn't want to be, but I know I have to go through it. But I'm better mentally prepared, to go for that. I'm ready to fight back. I'm ready to swing back at life and give myself a fighting chance with the scenario I've been handed. Yeah, I know that it hasn't have to do much with breakups, but in your relationship, regardless if you're in a relationship, you're single, you're taken, you're in a weird just um you guys are just what's that shit called? Friends with benefits. Learn to really analyze yourself and make sure you know what you want, and make sure you don't put people in a weird scenario that don't want to be in it. Like if they like you and they emotionally like you, I think most people know. Um, don't hurt people because then people have to go through these dark cycles, and it's not good for anybody. You could be hindering that person from meeting their future partner. And like I said, I don't believe that love is destiny. Like I just don't believe that. I believe that like once you find someone and you really like them and you really love them, you grow to appreciate them and learn and accept who they are. You will change things about yourself and do whatever you got to do for that person. Like for myself, I met someone that's very beautiful, open open-minded, a loving, caring person, a patient person, and I think that we all deserve to meet a person like that. A person that matches your energy, a person that shares your dreams and thoughts. So make sure you have those tough conversations with your couple. Don't lingering on it for too long. Make sure you want to learn everything about that person, because if you're going to spend the rest of your life with them, you want to make sure that you have every detail about that person. But breakups come and go with some people. It's part of life. You get to learn about them, and sometimes it doesn't mix well, and it happens, but sometimes the breakups are necessary. Um, but yeah, not really too much on that topic either. Like I said, I'm also not a dating expert. I've never really dated more than like two people in my whole life. So, not the expert on that. But on healing, like I said, it comes in various ways. And this is things that I believe that helped me in my life get better at situations that arise from a dark moment. Um, The last topic is going to be about stress and mental health issues. Like I said, stress is not good for anybody. In the previous example that I gave about me going through something about with my family, it was very, very hard for me as a person to go through that alone, and thankfully I didn't. My friends, my partner, everyone saw me go through a dark moment, and they landed out their hand to help me to overcome those dark times. And it's very appreciative because I knew who had my back in those dark moments. And I know that I've also learned to accept that even in those dark moments, there are other people that do wish the best for me, but physically can't just be there all the time for me. And I understand that. I'm not ignorant to that. Life continues no matter what kind of rare situation you're going through, which is why I believe that even though you're going through some hard moments, you playing a victim and asking people to um, come help and shelter you in a way that you need at that moment, it sometimes isn't it's impossible sometimes. Like I said, people are dealt hands all the time, dealt cards, bad cards all the time, and you don't know what the other person's going through. And in times of darkness of yourself, you shouldn't go and condemn others for not coming to support you, because I've talked to people, brothers of mine, that I didn't know what they were going through at the same time too. And I understand now as I'm getting older that no matter how bad of a chapter you're going through, everyone might be going through a bad chapter as well. And life is continuing it with you or without you. The clock is ticking. And if you choose to pause your life because of what you're going through, I promise you, if you do it for too long, you're going to have some resentment toward yourself, some regret, because life around you doesn't stop. It doesn't pause. People move on. People fall in love. People die. People get careers. People get jobs. And that's where I feel like a lot of people do fall into depression, because they're upset, because by the time they're trying to bounce back, everything else has moved on but them. And it's those dark moments that you can really put your brain, if you really dig into those bad thoughts like that and you only get stuck in those bad details, I can easily see how depression is a thing for a lot of people, because we look up and everything's changed but us, you know? And it's happened to me in my early 20s. I drank a lot, a lot. I used to work a lot of jobs, and time just passed. And people think I'm joking when I say this, but that's what made me change my life around at the age of, if I believe it was 24. I tried to change everything for myself because I was falling down a circle that I didn't like. And like I said to you, I came to realize that life was moving at full speed and I was pausing it and nothing was happening. And I was getting angry at everyone but myself. And this is where I come to full circle with why I believe in God. So this is the last thing I'm going to talk about. And then, yeah, and then that's it. That's the end of this episode. But, um, like I said, when I was a kid and my grandpa passed away, that's when my belief of God went away. And it came back, actually, ironically, when the worst moment of my life happened. Not because I went to him. And so basically, to summarize it, I had a little dog called Snowball. Um, when I was a young kid, I was fucking bullied. I was bullied OD, and um, I didn't really have that much friends. Shout out to Travis for being my only one true friend over there from the very beginning. And Snowball was a great dog, and he came in the right time. As a kid, I was very very, very upset. I didn't tell my parents. Like, I'm sure a lot of kids can relate. We don't tell our parents much when we're younger because we don't feel like they understand, and we feel like they're so much older than us and oblivious to what. Oh, they could have not. Like we tell ourselves, oh, they did definitely. They're not going to understand me. They're not going to understand my side. They're not going to understand where I'm coming from with this. But that dog was a miracle because I got to see what true love was about. You know, that dog unconditionally loved me, and I'm talking about a dog, which I get. That dog unconditionally loved me. Hold on, guys. Yeah, so I got to experience what unconditional love was because this dog loved me no matter what. He didn't look at me as a chubby loser or a kid that didn't wasn't cool, part of a cool circle. I got like I know your parents love you and everything, but like in my head as a child, I was like, oh, they're supposed to love me because I'm their kid, right? Like we think stupid things when we're young, and we don't seem to understand because we're asking a lot of questions and we're still learning and growing up and developing our minds. So we don't really understand things. And like I said, I was a stupid little kid. So this is how I was able to cope from it and understand true unconditional love was through this dog. So that dog was my best friend, and I remember he got really sick around this time. I think it was 2014, and 2014, no, 2 years, maybe like 2015, 2016. My dog was about like 12 years old, and he got really a weird disease where his tongue was literally it was falling off. Like there were parts of his tongue that weren't even there, and he was really sick. And it was about like a 2 week thing now. And around this time, my dad got into a really bad incident at work where he was basically immobilized from his back. His back was really fucked up. And around this time too, my niece, I'm not gonna give out her name, but she got hospitalized because there was a weird incident with her blood levels or something like that. And all this is happening, and like I said to you, I was in a dark place too because I was already drinking a lot, and a lot of the things that I felt were big issues, I over I made them big. And when these real issues hit me, it was overwhelming. I was having panic attacks, I was having anxiety attacks. I was sitting outside of my car for 2.5 hours before I went inside. um, I was still drinking a lot, and I was having health issues too, which I wasn't telling anyone about. um, and I prayed to God. This is when I decided to look to religion because obviously, in our darkest moments, even if you believe it or not, you look to God to see if He can get you out of this. And what did God do? Um, Here's the irony to everything. Um, he took my dog away. My dog, we had to put him to sleep. He got worse. My niece was healthy, but they were doing studies on her. My dad was about to lose his job, and I was given a conversation by a sibling of mine that I had to step it up, even though I was already going to school and working two jobs. And I had probably the worst panic attack ever when my dog passed away. It was a real bad one. I think I didn't come home till like 4 in the morning that day because I was just out driving, you know. And I like what Paula said in her episode of the Puka Circle podcast, which is episode 4. I'll never forget. She says she meditates, and I was able to resemble with this because this is the first time it had happened with me. She says when she meditates, she looks at her younger self, and her younger self talks to her and tells her how proud she is of her and how far she's come. And this is kind of like the one weird scenario where I was able to reflect so much because at this very moment of my life, this is why I say it's very important to talk to yourself. I don't know if my brain was playing a trick on me or whatever it was, but my younger self had approached me in a weird spiritual way, if you want to say, or a holographic way, like whatever you want to say, your brain does in these moments of darkness. And I'm telling you, I was in this horrible, horrible time. And at this time, Um, my younger self just looked at me and said, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" And I looked at my passenger seat and I was like, "What the fuck is going on right now?" And I decided to have a conversation with myself in the past. This little version of me was very intellectual, though, obviously, because, like I said, it's your own brain doing this. And I told him everything that was going on. And the first thing he said to me is like, "I guess our parents really let you have a dog in the end of the day. They never really would have done that in the past because we lived in an apartment." Hold on. My bad. I had to pause it. I had to pause that because my parents came. But to finish it off, basically, yeah, my younger self looked at me and was just telling me how he was proud of me, of how far our family has gone, reminding me of everything good that has happened. And I explained to him that about the situation of me praying to God and my dog just dying all of a sudden, not even shortly after I did that. And he said to me, he's like, "Did you ever think about him actually answering your prayers?" And I said, "What the hell does that even mean, bro?" Like I was like, I was talking to myself. And this younger self version of me was just like, "David, I think you have to look at it from the aspect of he did answer your prayers. Your dog was suffering, and instead of letting it suffer any day long for much longer, he did what was right and he answered your prayers and he took it away." And I told him, "Okay, but how does that explain the fact that my dad is still in pain?" And he said, "Well, you're making it seem unreasonable for them asking you to step up, even though I know you're working a lot and I know you're going to school. But if you ask me, um, the reason you're working so much is because you did have financial aid and you fucked it up by not taking school serious. And that's the reason you had to get another job." And I started realizing he was right. God had blessed me in so many situations where I didn't even know it or think twice about it, never thank him. I made horrible choices when I was younger and I was owning up to the consequences. And due to that, I put myself and my family in a bigger hole than I was in. And that is what made me realize that God was real to me. My faith in him had changed after that day. He had answered my prayers and he made me realize that he was giving me a much better life that I was just not choosing. And there were obstacles in my life that I was putting aside and just hiding in the circle because I thought that I couldn't make things better. And when the hard journeys came, I hid from them instead of facing them because I thought it was the easier choice, but it wasn't. Because one day I was going to have to look up from that circle that I dug myself in, and that looking just to get back to ground zero looked impossible, but I had to change my habits. I stopped drinking as much as I did. I put myself in a better job. I quit. Put myself I had a really big problem with being uncomfortable. And I said to myself, what was going to make me really uncomfortable at that moment was to quit my job and just not have really any big job lined up. And I did that because I could at that moment. And I looked to face my fears. And thankfully for that, I was able to join a new company, quit that place, and join a better company in my mind, where I met great people, met amazing people. My life got better. I met amazing people. My life got better economically. I was better spiritually, emotionally, financially. I was up and down, but those were my bad choices too. Today I own them. And yeah, that is what made me believe in God again, was because I was very fortunate to have had I wish I could have taken those choices back then, but I made my bed with my choices. They were bad ones at that time, and I'm owning up and suffering the consequences today, till today. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it was a real one of Time of Darkness. I didn't talk about too much or too much in detail, but I shared some stories, and hopefully you're able to reflect with me and you know understand where I came from with my side. And I hope you guys, even if you are in moments of darkness, um, like I said, put it aside if you need to for a little bit, but not for too long. Make sure you face it eventually. Make sure that we are looking at our futures and what we want, reflect on ourselves, and make sure that we're doing better to improve ourselves, and be grateful when there are good moments. Don't just talk to yourself in bad moments. Make sure you are grateful and are talking to yourselves in the good ones and great ones, you know. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to episode 12 of the season 2. I hope you guys all enjoyed this journey with me and hopefully continue to join it with me in season 3. Have a good night, everybody.